This is the stuff dreams are made of. I'm writer-collector Ryan Condal.
And I'm writer-collector Dave Mandel, and you're listening to the original movie prop collecting podcast, brought to you by nobody. We are in need of we're in need of a sponsor, and I don't think this episode's going to help us get any. But
No.
We really need a sponsor. But we'll be talking about more of that in the final episode. Hi Ryan, how are you?
Hi Dave. Always brightening my day. You.
Always
Bless
happy
you.
to help. Always happy
Yeah.
to help. Should we dive into it with what's new in props? Which, because this is a monster of an episode, I feel like.
Yeah, I think we have a long episode ahead. So
our what's new in props truly actually connects to the episode itself. And I think people were hoping that they'd be hearing a little bit of sort of a prop store auction recap. And that's going to come, but it's going to come a little bit, maybe the next episode, which will probably be the last of our season, although I've lost all track of time and space continuum. So you'll hear a little bit more about that in the next one. So tune in for that and sort of a state of the podcast, which we want to talk to you guys about. But one of the things that was most interesting for those paying attention during the auction week, or I should say in the week or two leading up to the auction, is right before the big prop store auction, there was a giant announcement made that got a shitload, and I believe that is the mathematical term, a shitload of press.
that's an internet metric now.
Yes, a shitload of follows or checks or likes or something, or a shitload of TikTok dances, and I don't know, possibly possibly announced, during the lead up to the prop store auction, with a giant announcement that the only original complete Han Solo gun would be coming up for auction. And this was, needless to say, something that I, among other people, woke up to one morning. And this was heavily covered, specifically in the Rob Report, which is a website, former magazine that sort of
Literally for yacht people, Dave.
Yes, cars,
It
yachts,
is-
aviation, watches, lifestyle, home, food, drink, and travel. Truly for the finer things in life, the Rob Report. But it was picked up everywhere. You can find it on Hypebeast, you can find it on Stupid Dope, and you can find it on MSN. So this was an article that definitely got picked up everywhere about this, the only complete Han Solo blaster, and
From A New Hope.
Good point. Although they certainly didn't indicate that there were others. They didn't seem concerned with that. They seemed to want to make it as much as possible of a one of one, at least the way the Rob Report thing reads. And everyone kind of sort of ran for the websites and to check it all out. And this was at Studio Auctions in co-listing with Golden Auctions, which I know more from sports collectibles. I think of them as more baseball cards and that kind of stuff, but I guess they have been dipping into other collectibles and some Star Wars stuff. So this seemed to be some sort of a co-branding auction. And once people got pictures, I don't know how to say this, but from the moment you looked at it, it did not look right. And needless to say, as people sort of got a hold of it, the fan community, it was torn down in such a spectacular way. It felt biblical. It felt like, I don't know, it felt like the Israelites, tearing down some sort of false idol of some sort. It was a ghetto beatdown on this prop, the number of things that were wrong with it, including ultimately that, the body of the gun, which we'll get to, had been in an auction somewhat recently. So a really just terrible fake that what we wanted to do today a little bit was we've got an amazing guest. We want to talk about do a deep dive on Han Solo guns so that people know what they're looking at. But I think there's also this larger comment or a larger discussion of how do auctions let this get through such as it did? How does the Rob Report sort of hype it up? And we should point out, it's completely gone. There's no mention of it on any websites in terms of the auction houses now. It seems to be gone. It has seemingly been pulled, and the auction houses are welcome to come on and tell us about the process, but it just sort of seems like, how do you get that far? How do you get to hyping it that much when it was so clearly wrong in just an I don't know, almost a nauseating way? And also, I should point out, naming official, sort of calling out the names of, Roger Christian from the Star Wars movie and Jason Joyner, well-known collector, as authenticating it. And I'm baffled by these things. And look, everybody's wrong sometimes and everybody makes mistakes. But I guess what really drives me crazy is how quickly the internet will run with, the press will run with something and publicize something. And then when it is now gone and it is now pulled, there's nothing on the Rob report saying this is gone, this was wrong, this was not the piece.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? Is it going to show up in another auction? Is it going to show up in a private sale somewhere? Is it going to be rebuilt on a different body and tried to be sold again? It's just the fakes in this hobby are just beyond disgusting. And at the numbers we're now talking about, I'm guessing it's only going to get worse. But boy, if you're going to fake something, at least use real rubies. I mean, it's really unbelievable just how terrible.
How many people know that?
Yeah,
about
how
the
terrible.
Original Han Solo
the
blaster.
original Han Solo gun was all real rubies, and they didn't use real rubies. But it is just incredible. I mean, people are pretty stupid, but they're not that stupid. I guess is what I'll sort of say. This thing was just terrible looking. And yeah.
I when it got posted, I immediately cottoned looking at it that something was off. And I've spent a lot of time staring at that blaster, as we know, was one of my favorite props. This was
a favorite prop, and you obsessed on your own purchase thereof. Yes.
Correct. Yes, and we'll get the very skilled builder of that piece is joining us tonight, so he can talk about it. But that was probably as I was coming up, that was the prop that I most obsessed over as a replica collector. So I knew a lot about it. I had seen all the original photos. I'd spent a lot of time staring at that particular piece, and there was just something that was sort of off about it. So I immediately went to my old friends at the RPF because I knew they would have something to say. And I very much enjoyed reading that thread over there, and it still stands. It's a public forum, so we'll
put a link up. We'll put a link on both the listing and our social media, because it is. But
you should go take a look.
It's a pleasure to read. It's so thorough and so funny. They're built into every comment on the RPF is just sort of a certain amount of shock of like. Really? There's a really at the end of every sentence in there, like the old
whether
Amy
in text
Poehler,
or in subtext.
Yes, exactly. It's just like, really? 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 Yeah.
Yeah, lots of indignant nerds, and I love all of you guys. Don't ever stop. We were kind of pulling this together. The Han Solo blaster was long on our list of deep dives, because there actually is a ton of information out there about it. David and I each own an original from the films. I have a stunt. David has a hero. So there actually is a lot known about these, and people have studied them to a great degree. So this felt like a great subject for one of our deep dives. So we sort of saw this auction kind of get announced, and then we're like, well, we should pull this subject up because it's in the zeitgeist. People are talking about it, and it feels like the public needs to have a little knowledge dropped on them about this particular thing, so that people can do their research,
or
and
at least the people
at
the Rob report. Hopefully they at least are paying attention.
Yeah, I don't know if they get podcasts on their yacht, the SS Rob report, but we will do our best to beam it on over there. So anyway, I think we should just bring him on, because I feel like this is going to be one of our long ones, and it's a long but good one, as we have a lot to go through. But I met Scott probably about, I would say, 10 years ago. Scott can probably clear the record. I met him digitally online when a friend of mine and I had commissioned him to build 2 Hero Han Solo A New Hope blasters, replicas, not ones to put into auction and say that they're originals, but replicas of real.
But you should think about putting them into auction now as originals. You should definitely think about it.
I mean, if it's worth $3 million, Dave, I'm going to have to think about it.
They look good. They're definitely good fakes. So, I mean, what the hell? I will authenticate. I will authenticate it. Dave Mandel, prop collector, says they're real.
Known Star Wars
collector says it's real. Yeah, there you go.
And Angry Man on the internet says that it's real. But they're lovely. They're beautiful. They're built out of real classic broom handle Mausers from the sort of turn of the 19th century, or turning from the 19th century into the 20th century, late 1800s, and they are functional. That's how we commission those things with the real. I believe Scott can correct the record on this, but the real World War I scope that goes on it, and there's Scott himself. But they're gorgeous, and he's made a bunch of these replicas over the years, and is I would say, foremost authority on the subject of all things Han Solo Blaster. So it's a great pleasure to bring him onto the podcast. Welcome, Scott.
Well, thank you for the kind words. I don't know if I'm the expert, but I nerded out quite a bit, just like everybody else, but. Yeah, I've made quite a few of the live fire ones for sure. Was it that long ago? I can't. That's crazy.
I think so. Maybe 8-9 years, but it's coming up on it.
Yeah. I mean, I've done anywhere between 25 and 30 of those things now.
Oh wow.
And you just don't do them over a weekend. So it's like I guess so. It's been quite a while. But yeah, and I think even when we did yours, the aim wasn't to be a nick for nick replica, because we wanted to preserve the patina that those original parts already had, and it was a close enough kind of thing, and not anything to where it could even be fool anybody for the real thing. So
correct. Yeah, and I love it how even the scopes that either we tracked down or you tracked down for us even had, because they were kind of not custom made themselves, but they weren't being made in a factory. They had different stampings on them. So
they were all. I've personally owned over 30 of the scopes, and not a single one was exactly the same. The knurling differs depending on how it was chucked up in the machines. The bead didn't hit the same. They had different patterns. Each one of the internals was completely different from the others. You couldn't swap them out. It's just crazy. They were all handmade. The bodies were all generally about the same, because they were, done to a template, I guess. But other than that, all the rest of the stuff was hand fit and, made to measure, basically.
Yeah.
But I do think it's funny. I think that's actually a very just apt thought to start with, because especially when you talk about the original Star Wars movie, where so much of the movie was handmade, because there was no other movie they were going from. I think it is why, on so many of the Star Wars original film props, the New Hope props, we see differences from prop to prop. Why is this one a little this way and this one's a little that way? Because they weren't working from a pattern. They weren't working from a machine. They were, as you sort of have said, Scott, before, they were going through boxes of parts and finding things that looked interesting and putting them down and kind of putting it on the other one in the same spot. And this, again, I'm talking about Star Wars in general, but especially in the various hand props and whatnot. It's why we're seeing these differences. And it's one of those things where, now, whatever it is, 50 years later, we like to think to ourselves like, well, wait a second, this isn't exactly that. And that must mean one of them is wrong. Not always. Sometimes it just means, no, they were gluing them down fast and furious, and that's what happened. That being said, though, when you do see a fake, you got to call out a fake.
For sure, yeah. And it happens that they chose, for the blasters anyway, they chose a particular gun that was made back when nothing was exactly the same. There was no there was general repeatability, but it wasn't everything was hand fit. Each gun, each one of those guns.
The Mauser itself was being put together by hand. Therefore, they themselves.
They had numbers matching parts. Like all the little parts had to fit, and they were hand filed to fit and work with each particular gun. Yeah, some of them are interchangeable, but a lot of them need adjustment if you want to swap things. So and that helps in our case now, because we can identify exactly. Each one is like a fingerprint. Every mill mark, every nick and scratch and mill mark is a fingerprint that's 100% identifiable.
And we should start there with the A New Hope blaster, because it's always been, and Scott, you can clear the air right here, but it's always been my understanding, or long been my understanding at the very least, that style of blaster, the one that was put up for auction, there was only one of those.
Yeah.
As far as we can tell, the film.
As far as any photographic or film evidence can tell, there was just the one.
It's always the same one. You see all the same markings, all the same nicks and scratches. It screen matches in every scene where you can see it up close. It's that one again and again every time.
Here it is.
Pre and post production.
And I was going to say, and also the pre-production photos where sometimes you would see, sometimes there are props that are made for the film that don't end up getting on the screen, and sometimes you would see those in a pre-production film where they lay out all the props for the art department and they take a photo of them all together, and you see something that was there but you never see it on screen. That's not even the case here, right? There was only one.
And in this particular case, the Han Solo New Hope hero one, that was even, we can identify parts of it that were used in other movies prior.
Right.
Oh, you mean other places that Bapty would have lent the gun to? Oh, fascinating.
For a specific, like there's a
Sinatra film,
movie, and there was another movie called The Sweeney that it was in too, or at least parts of it.
Yeah, parts of it, because the Sinatra film, it was being used essentially as a sniper rifle or something, right?
But we can identify 100% identify the upper. I mean, I have that photo here for us to look at.
Okay.
Where we even see the serial number, which matches your cast Dagobah blaster, which is the exact same upper that it's cast from.
Yeah, which is really, really cool. And I didn't actually, I knew that we can get to that when we get to the stunt blasters. But what I thought was so cool when I bid on my stunt, that was it pointed out to me in the lead up to it, was that the stunt was actually the stunts in Empire and Jedi were cast off of the A New Hope base hero Mauser, because it has that bull barrel on it, which is so cool. I mean, to have lineage back to that gun is great, which means officially that mine is actually better than Dave's Return of the Jedi hero, which is really why I called this podcast together.
I can live with that. I can live with that, because I'm bidding on the only complete Star Wars one, which is coming up in an auction or not. We're not sure, but I'm going to bid on it anyway. Scott, I did want to jump in really quickly, and I do want to get into the gun, but just really quickly, like, did you kind of wake up to the news of this other gun being in auction? Is that kind of
a mutual friend contacted me and said, "Hey, look at this." And I saw it right away from the auction site, and it took me all of 2 seconds to realize exactly what everything was. It's funny how familiar you can get with these parts and the guns and things like that. And immediately looking at it, I could tell, well, that's a field marshal or a blaster factory kit on a large ring.
For those that don't understand what we're saying here, that was basically a kit that fans could order to make their own gun.
It's a known replica kit.
A known replica kit. Very well known kit, very well done, very well made, but unbelievable that is what they went for, to try and fake again, going from these different headlines, a prop that they seem to be asking, that they were predicting in these various news articles, $2-3 million. And yet the perpetrators, whoever they are, went for just a kit. Like, it's not even good forgery.
The complete lack of effort was astounding.
Yeah.
It was just almost how big your balls have to be to try and pull that off. If with zero effort, zero effort. It was just zero effort.
Well, that's the Rob Report's that's their motto, zero effort, apparently. Wow. So there you go. Yeah.
And well, I mean, if you don't know this now, you will know it by the end of this podcast. I mean, this especially the A New Hope blaster is literally one of the most studied props in the history of replica making. I mean, people have poured over every inch of that, trying to find if there was off the shelf stuff made, trying to find exactly what it was, and the stuff that wasn't off the shelf, the machined parts, trying to get the knurling correct, trying to get the size, the fit, where it sits on the gun. There are people that have gone out and made replicas, not trying to make forgeries, but trying to make replicas where all of the scratches and all of the weathering matches up to the original. It's just, I mean, the thought that you could just do this without thinking that a magnifying glass was going to be applied to it is just stunning to me.
Well, with that as an entree, let us dig into the history of the Han Solo blaster, Scott, and then every now and then perhaps we will point out some of the things and kind of go back to why this one was wrong. And by the way, this isn't the first time someone has tried to put a quote-unquote original Star Wars blaster into an auction and been sort of batted down. We'll talk a little bit about that as well.
Or lightsaber, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, we see it with lightsabers all the time, yeah. Absolutely. So, Scott, dig in, if you will, and let us start our journey down Han Solo lane.
Let's jump into A New Hope.
All right, let's go with some pictures here.
And we should point out, for those of you listening, you may want to jump over to the YouTube channel because it's really going to be worth your time. This is definitely a photo-based podcast this week, but we will try and put some pictures up where we can. But you do really want to jump over to the YouTube and check some of these photos out. It will make all the world of difference in your life. I think it'll honestly improve your life a little bit. So
it's going to complete you.
Yeah.
So this photo we're looking at right here, this is, best I can tell, this is how it came from Bapti when the production ordered it. Hey, we need this gun. Boom, here you go. Here's your gun. Here's your ray gun, right? You have it's undressed except for the scope. The scope mount is put on there and everything. We got the scope, we got the Flashhider, we got the bull barrel upward. This is how it came. Then now these pictures I've colorized. The original pictures are washed out film stock, but I've colorized and kind of done the contrast.
That's amazing.
Here.
Yeah, I was going to say I've never seen this one color before, but that explains it.
But you'll see here. Here's the other view.
So this is pre-weathering and pre-greeblies.
This is pre Roger Christian and his crew or whoever dressed it up by putting greeblies on it and stuff. And really, all they did, we can jump over here to this picture here. All they really did was spray paint it black and put some Tomtit cylinders. These are from a model airplane kit.
Okay.
They just cut up 3 of those and glued them on the front. And on the other side, it seems like there was something else glued in the center.
The mystery disc.
Yeah,
right?
What we call the mystery disc, because nobody really knows.
Right. Sort of a metallic dial or disc or something, it looks like.
More likely it was probably what they've been putting on a bunch of the other props, which is a little record player piece. It matches the size. It's got a hole in the center. Why you see the little black dot in the center, and they probably just glued it on and then spray painted the whole thing black.
And then as Harrison blasted away, it probably flew off in a recoil or something.
We can tell some of the things and why it looked like it was. In my opinion, it was spray painted black is because if we look back at this picture at the bottom here, you have the wear of the paint here at the bottom edges showing the metal coming through. And in doing the live fires, I learned a lot. When I test fire those things, when I had the Tomtit cylinders glued on the front, the first couple types of adhesive I used, it wouldn't stand it. The recoil would just pop them right off. And what happened was when that happened, the adhesive, the epoxy and stuff took the bluing with it, took the bluing and took the paint with it and left a very distinct outline of the parts. Just like when we look at this picture where this mystery disc was, you can kind of see a little lip around that bottom edge of it.
Right.
And this is exactly what happened with the live fires that I had done. Finished them out. Everything went to do the final test firing and the recoil popped off the greeblies. And it left the very distinct lip of the glue and pulled the bluing as well as the paint off around it. So that's why I believe that these whole things were painted in the bottom. But we can nerd out about that and debate it all day long. But this is what we have left is this pretty much exactly the same, other than the greeblies, exactly the same as how they delivered it from Bapti right here.
From Bapti. Yeah. Scott, can you just presuming a lot of people coming into this are going to know about this blaster and know that it's maybe based on a Mauser, not know much else about it. Can you talk about the scope mount, the scope, where that comes from, the Flashhider, what that is, the bull barrel, what we mean when we say that. Kind of go into all the things that conspire to make this the Han Solo blaster.
Yeah. So when we're looking at a Mauser, an 1896 Mauser, they had a lot of variants from the beginning of when they started making them to when they started to really become commercially successful. They had a lot of variations in how it was done. And this will come into play when we look at this auction blaster because it's a very specific early variant. Once we get to the Han Solo and the Luke Skywalker and stuff from Empire Strikes Back, we come into what are known as the wartime and pre-war commercial models. So these were...
And we should point out what a glorious time for Germany at the time. But anyway, go on. Yeah.
So the war, and when I say wartime, we mean World War I, the Great War. At the time, they just called it the Great War.
So great. Go on.
As in big. So the pre-wars...
A bunch of people just wanted to make Germany great again, Dave.
The pre-war Mausers tended to be much more cleanly machined. There was more care put in the finishing and things like that. When you compare them side by side, usually the pre-wars are just prettier, more or less. And they had a few features that changed into the wartime commercials, like the safeties, the way the safety operated was changed a little bit. But when you get into the wartime production, you could see that they were making them hard and fast because the milling started to become sloppy. All the fit and finish just became a little bit more sloppy and it wasn't as good. And they had more production numbers, so they just were churning them out as much as possible.
And this is an 1896, right? So this is a pre-war.
Well, the 1896 is the patent time when that's why it's designated that model. Model 1896 is when they developed it. But by the point we're looking at these Han Solo blasters and things like that, we're talking about the 1910s, this kind of era. Wartime was, I guess, from 16 to or 15, 14, whenever it started in Europe.
14, right?
Till about 1918.
Yeah, okay. But this is a pre-war model.
This one would be a wartime.
This was. Oh, okay,
yeah.
Okay.
But the particular Han Solo blaster, we don't have a matching upper and lower. So what we talked about earlier is these were hand fit to guns and they were all numbered. So you had serial numbers on the upper, serial numbers on the lock frame, the sear, the bolt stop, the magazine plate, the follower. Every little major piece had a number that was serialized to the specific gun. Even the grips have serials on the back of them. But what we know is that this upper traveled around. It in Bapti's use, it got used for other things in other movies. And it was mated to different lowers because we have pictures of it mated to a different lower for the Sinatra movie, which the lower is completely different from the Han Solo lower. The downside is we don't know what serial number the Han Solo lower is. And I think your cast doesn't show the serial numbers either. I think I've seen pictures of the cast on the back. It's really rough.
Yeah, no.
So it's not legible.
No. And where would that have been written or stamped?
Right on the back. Where here, I have a visual aid.
Great.
So right back
between
here,
the grips, yeah, okay.
You have a serial number going on this lock frame, this internal piece.
Yeah.
And then on the lower part of the grip, right here above, right between the frame and the wooden grips, and you would have serial numbers on the hammer, on the bolt, on the bolt stop here, all over the place. That's what we're looking at as far as that. But the bull barrel, I don't know who named it a bull barrel, but there are bull barrels in other firearms. So it must be an industry word. But usually it's when a barrel is thicker for, I don't know, for whatever reason. Maybe it's to keep the weight of the gun heavier at the front so you have less recoil. I'm not quite sure. I don't pretend to know exactly why that is that way. It could be for pressures. It could be for all kinds of things. I'm not sure.
In your understanding, was that, or your thinking, was that done for Star Wars, or was that part of the existing upper that they inherited?
Yeah, it was part of the existing upper that they inherited. Okay. They just happened to use.
Oh, that's interesting. I guess I always assumed that was ordered up, but it was not. Interesting.
No, it predates Star Wars by at least a decade, I think.
Yeah.
Which
so
probably...
guys, you'll see, sorry, Dave, but you'll see if you look at if you look at like Dave's hero, which will come later, or the Empire heroes, the Mauser, the typical Mauser barrel, or if you just look at a 1896 broom handle Mauser before it's been made into a Star Wars gun, where the gun barrel leaves, there you go, in Scott's window there, where it leaves the receiver, it's much thinner than in the A New Hope model.
Yeah, it's
like
slimmed down
half the
to
thickness.
a graceful taper, and it's very thin all the way. Whereas the New Hope is really fat and thick. And what they did was they cut it off and grafted that piece on, and the end of the Han Solo underneath that flash hider, it's threaded, because in the films prior, they used it as kind of a sniper rifle. And I'll show you a picture here. This will help illustrate it.
Oh, great.
Oh, wow. So that's from the Sinatra
movie? This is
movie?
from the movie, the Sweeney. But it's the same kit that they used for the Sinatra movie. So in the movie, they thread the barrel on to you can see the bull barrel right there at the end, and they thread that long barrel on so they can make it a sniper rifle.
But I think it also speaks to just them looking at things that were around and going, that's cool looking. I mean, honestly, just in terms of like why and how this is the Han Solo gun, I think there's an element of, oh, well, that with that on it is really cool looking. And like, we don't have to do as much. I mean, again, I'm just talking about back in 1975, 1976, when you're trying to make this movie for as little money as possible. And they had shifted to this notion of, you know, found items and whatnot. I think just being able to see this Mauser and go, look at this with this, but then if we do this and that, it starts to seem spacey. I don't know. I just think there's something very cool about that.
Well, I think we should probably, someone should probably give credit to the armorers at Bapti who did this stuff, because they did it before Star Wars.
Yeah,
and they just were sticking scopes on guns for the movies because wow, it looks so different and cool, you know. And then when I'm pretty sure that when someone said, "Hey, we need a bunch of guns for Star Wars," they go, "Well, okay, let's just stick a bunch of scopes on them," and then here you go.
Yeah, but I mean, it makes a huge difference. You take these guns, you put a scope on it, it looks crazy. Sometimes you put two scopes on it, it looks that much better. You know what I mean? It's kind of interesting.
Three, Dave.
Yeah, three, exactly.
All the first movie guns all have scopes galore.
Yeah,
yeah. Can you talk about the scope on the Solo Blaster? Because that's an interesting relic all in and of itself.
Yeah, the scopes are Hensoldt Wetzlar scopes. These are World War I sniper scopes. They usually were paired with Gewehr 98s, so that they would. And most of the scope, many of them.
Also a German scope, Scott?
Also German scope. They were numbered, and they have serial numbers of their own, but a lot of them, and including the Han Solo one, have a GW number right out, which is Gewehr, and then so they were numbered to be paired with a specific rifle as a sniper.
Oh, interesting.
And they came in varying powers. Most common was three power or 2.5, 2 3/4. And that usually was determined by the lens assembly inside, and I guess they had some kind of math to where they figured out how many times things were being magnified. But there were also 4 power. Those are more rare, but not as expensive nowadays because the Star Wars collectors all want the 3 power one.
Because the 3 power was what the original one was.
Yeah. And like the guns of those times, they are very unique. Each one's its own thing. And luckily, due to one of the auctions recently, we know exact serial number of the Han Solo scope.
So we should point this out. There was about a couple of years ago, and I guess it's come around twice now, then possibly 3 times. There was a gun that was basically, again, being sold as an original Han Solo gun, where the scope was the actual scope, correct? It matched the serial number. That was the right piece.
Screen match, all the scratches. Yeah.
But everything else basically was wrong, for lack of a better word.
But you're saying that the scope mount.
Yeah.
Yeah. The scope mount was at least partially correct. Yes.
Yeah. So just a quick overview of that one. When I first saw that, it was came to me to help.
Do we have any pics of that one, or do we
have a photo of that?
Here we go.
No, there we go.
This is that gun.
So on that gun, what just sort of again, what was real? What looked good?
The real parts were the scope, the top rings, and this cradle is this top portion of the cradle is mostly correct. There's a story that goes along with it, and I've read through the email chain and all the talk from the people who were involved in all this stuff years ago. So apparently the original was damaged in some way, and the original person who fabricated all this stuff back in the day is still alive and refabricated it into this. So he used what was still available of this cradle, and from about right here up is still original, and from there down is refabricated. I don't know if they welded new steel on and reshaped it, because a lot of the geometry changes from there down, but the other stuff matches from there up. It's all, ding for ding, mill mark for mill mark match.
So a couple of points out of that. It speaks to the fact that when the movie was done, the gun went back to Bapty, and that whether the damage occurred on Star Wars or after the fact, we don't know, but it was damaged and it was cut there. And this went into auction a couple of times. When it went into auction, and I don't want to accuse anybody of anything, were they originally saying the whole thing was real, or were they just they were at the first time?
So they were saying that this is the real thing, and then they changed the tune to where no, it's not the real. I mean, it was made. This is the other production blaster. This is the other one. And that even in the email chain of things I read is that they knew that a lot of the stuff that they had from back then was destroyed in a government buyback, things like that. And the parts that they had now were just things that they had left over. That's why they had the scope and the mount, I guess.
Yes, I mean, we should say the Mauser, the base Mauser, is likely gone, likely destroyed,
likely gone.
Yes,
no, it's coming up for sale. I just saw the only complete one. Yeah,
it's probably gone, and if it isn't, we'll never know. As far as I can tell, from what we know right now today in 2025, early 2025, April 6, 2025.
Jesus Christ, is it 2025? Fuck, when did that happen? All right,
we don't know the serial number of the lower, and I don't think anybody does. So that will never be identified. Even if someone has it, they wouldn't know unless you match the dents and the dings. Maybe.
I wonder if somewhere deep in the recesses of Bapty there's paperwork that would have a serial number on it. But anyway, I guess we'll never know that either. But yeah.
Yeah, probably. But all that stuff was mix matched. So
right. I think a lot of that paperwork got destroyed, Dave, because Bapty changed hands so many times between 1976
I'm just saying in theory somewhere there's a piece of paper. But again, the likelihood of finding that is probably the same. Yeah. So they originally tried to sell this as this other gun, whatever. And I think that, as I said, it came up a couple of times. No one sort of wanted anything to do with it. But the rest of the gun was so radically wrong because, as you say, they were just using other random pieces that they basically had laying around. Again,
they made something new to try and make it look old. And what's funny is when they first brought it to Prop Store to look at before it ended up on Pawn Stars, because they went this chain. Will you buy it? Nope. Will you buy it? Nope. Will you buy it? Okay. That's kind of how it went. And then when it changed looks, you can see it here. By this point, it changed. The weathering on the metal changed. The Flashhider is no longer that Parkerized looking thing. It's kind of blued and weathered. So they made some effort to try and make it a little bit more presentable. But when I first saw this, it was interesting because I said, whoa, the scope is the scope, unless it's the most meticulous fake I've ever seen ever. And it shows things that no one has replicated so far. Same with the top rings in that cradle. But then from there down and the whole gun, I was like, it was just like this newest one. The lack of effort. It was such a contrast. Like if someone went through so much trouble to fake the scope and the cradle,
right? Why not fake the rest of it?
Why not fake the rest of that degree? It's just it didn't match. And so when you find out the provenance of who was putting it together and who was making it, it became very clear that they had those parts and then just kind of generally made the rest to make it present.
Well,
as
look, I mean, this piece is super interesting because, again, I think most science fiction weapons, if you don't have the whole thing, it's not as interesting. But particularly for Han Solo's blaster from A New Hope, the fact that somebody found the original scope and part of the mount is pretty damn interesting. And I think if it had been, I don't know, mounted on a otherwise, built to spec gun and sold for what it was, I think it would have been interesting and really generated quite a bit of bidding.
I think there's a version where you put the scope onto almost, even if it is you certainly could use a Mauser, but almost like, don't try and do greeblies, don't try and age it, don't try and weather it, just almost like the more simplistic, the better, or even better yet, almost like put it on I don't know, make a sort of like, again, almost like the dinosaur version, put it on a gray plastic body. You know what I mean? Where you're basically just going, here's the scope. We're selling the scope. It's the, what's the word I'm looking for? It's the fraud of trying to go, no, the scope is real, therefore the whole gun is real, that feels problematic to me. And again, the fact that, different auction houses taking these things and not spending 4 seconds to figure this stuff out drives me crazy. Just drives me crazy. Because, by the way, I'd be interested in a scope unto itself. It's just I'm not interested in this nonsense. Yeah, the scope itself. Yeah.
That's why when it first came, I said, "Tell him I'll give him $500 for the scope."
Right. Yeah.
It'd be good. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
All right, and then Scott, can you talk about the scope mount? Because the thinking was that stuff was much of that was actually just kind of custom machined, right, to be able to fit it onto the Mauser.
Yeah, I mean, that's the theory, because I think me and everybody else have looked long and hard at other produced World War I kind of mounts like that.
At some point, somebody even talked about it. Like, I remember early on, talked about it, maybe thinking it was an old door hinge or something like that had been modified.
I mean, it's certainly made to hold a scope but we have some evidence that tells a little bit of the story about where it came from, at least before Star Wars. So there's a movie here called, The Sitting Target. Anyway, this movie here, they have the exact Han Solo scope.
Oh, yeah.
The scope, the mount, everything is there. You have the mount.
Look at that.
Right here. This is the exact Han Solo scope, but they just have it put on an M712. So this one is a full auto firing Mauser from 1930. And in that movie that has they use the stock and they use this as a kind of sniper weapon. And
you see the thin barrel there, not the bull barrel that appears
this
later.
One's a little bit different from the wartime. It has a couple steps on the barrel, the difference in aesthetics, how things were made. So this gun has nothing to do with the Han Solo stuff, but the mount does. So this is the exact mount and scope from Han Solo.
Have there been other mounts coming out of Bapti? Meaning, are there multiples of the mount with like attached to other scopes? Is this a piece for them? Like whether they created it or I don't know. I mean,
well, that's what they say. I believe it's in that email chain about that one blaster. Is these are all fabricated at the time for films.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
This is not, I don't think this is a found part, but I don't know for sure. I think this was fabricated by the guys at Bapti, which obviously the armorer is, skilled enough to fabricate the other things. So it makes sense.
I mean, basically they're trying to mount these scopes, A, so that they look cool, and also B, so that the guns can still fire, I guess, without the scope interfering with the hammer, basically. Yeah. Because if the scope is too low, basically you have an issue. You have just an issue with the gun working. So it's an ingenious little piece. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this picture here is the same gun without the mount and the scope.
Okay.
So you just see the little dovetail on it where that mount slides on, and you have that thumb nut to kind of cinch it down. So this is that same gun without it. And then we have the movie, the Frank Sinatra movie, where it...
I think I'm going to start getting rid of my Star Wars stuff and only collecting on the Sweeney. That's my new obsession.
Here's another picture of that there. Here's another picture of a different angle.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
Well, it's funny, Dave. The Rob Report just announced that the original gun from the Sweeney
Oh, my gosh.
was coming up for...
The only complete one from the Sweeney? Oh, that's excellent. And it's been authenticated by Sweeney himself and Frank Sinatra. He wrote a letter dated today's date from 2025, April, whatever the heck it is, and it's signed by Frank Sinatra, even though he's been dead for 10 years.
Now, what we're looking at here is the Frank Sinatra gun in a close-up. This is the only close-up frame of the thing. But this is very useful because we can see the serial number right at the very top of the frame, 2813. And Ryan, if you look at your blaster, it's exactly the same.
Love it.
That upper
is so cool.
Traveled around and got used in other movies. So, but we know it 100% because we can see the serial number. That's your upper that your gun is cast from. This is the Han Solo upper, and because we can see that in that early Bapti photo, we can match their serial number and all the other attributes for it.
So damn.
So you're saying mine is also a fake, Scott?
Yeah. So, but I have this interesting sequence here of when he pulls it out of the case.
I need a case like that, but go on.
It's cool.
You can kind of see frame for frame. They got the bottom is flat of the bullet barrel there. It's just kind of interesting to look at it in motion. And here,
I mean, it's literally that. They just screwed the MG42 Flashhider right onto that thing, right? They must have just made a threaded thing and put it right on there.
Probably. Yeah, we'll never know what was inside there, but you can see their threads right there.
Yeah, you can see the actual thread even in that grab. Oh wow.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting. So that's it. We can identify things that way too.
Should we jump a moment to the purported the Rob report, the only complete screen used?
Wait, hang on. I just want to do. I do. The Flashhider is actually very interesting because no one has the everyone, even the ones you make, Scott, are machined, right? Because no one can find.
Yeah, they're very rare, very sought after, and very, very, very expensive. Because the guys who own actual machine guns that still work, who have them on their guns, they will not let them go. The only ones that most collectors.
Star Wars fans are the scourge of camera collectors and World War II collectors. Yeah. Is that true?
Yeah, and I think that they were aware. I think there's a very small community of people with MG81 machine guns, which is what that's from, that own these things. And I think they're very well
I will not have you speaking poorly of my fellow machine gun owning brothers, sir. How dare you? On behalf of the machine gun owning group, it's for fun, it's for sport. We have no intention of using them in a bad way, and we love our guns. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, well, I think that they're well aware of the Star Wars connection, and they're gonna either really profit from it or protect it. One of the two.
So it's an MG81. Now MG42 is not that. Was that a different Star Wars part?
Different Star Wars, different gun, different. I don't think the MG42 was used in anything Star Wars.
Okay. So it's it was. For some reason I have that deep in the recesses of my replica brain, but it's an MG81, and what it was on is that on a like a vehicle mounted machine gun? Is that one of the ones that you would you need a fire team to work, or is that something that one guy is carrying
around? Aircraft.
Okay.
Yeah, typically it was on I think the Henkel bombers. I'm not 100% sure.
So it's like the belly gun in a bomber or something.
Yeah, they were mounted here and there. Usually they came in twos. They were twins. They had two, but I don't know. I'm not an MG81 specialist.
Have you ever seen a real one on a? Have you ever put a real one on a Star Wars blaster?
Yes, I've had a few people send in their dug up relics, and these are like the ones that were either found in a battlefield or whatever. And they're half rusted. Nice. Most of them are half rusted out, and they're not great, but a couple of them have been pretty nice. Very few people have pristine, like good shape ones. Most of them are battlefield finds, in varying states of decay. But they don't look that great on a blaster. It doesn't look the part, but it's real. So you have to make that compromise if you want the real thing or something that looks right. Yeah, and I've seen a couple real MG81s at museums that still had their original parts too.
Excellent. Sorry, so Dave was asking if we could now compare this.
Now that we have learned what it should be, let us jump to look at the only fully intact Han Solo DL-44 blaster. Full details coming 3/26/25. Like we said, it has since disappeared, but continue forward, my friend.
Well, what we're looking at here is the Golden Auctions image, one of them,
the ad,
where they showed it off, and right away you can see. I think anybody who didn't know what they were looking at would go, "Oh wow, okay," because it's a reputable auction house. It must be real. It must be cool. But when you look at it with any kind of knowledge, you can tell right away that things aren't looking right. Let me get to it here. I don't know where these pictures came from. These are from the RPF. Someone had pictures of this. It's the exact same gun from the auction site, just close up, closer, sort of. But
this one with the greeblies on it, oddly.
Yeah, they put some kind of greebly on there.
Very strange, yeah.
It's not a good enough picture for me to tell exactly what, and all the ones from the auction are gone, which it did change from this picture here with no greebly to having a greebly. Which is funny. When you have it side by side like that, you can tell that everything's wrong on it. But first glance, when I first saw it, I worked with these enough to know that this is a blaster factory mount.
And again, that's a replica kit that anyone can purchase, basically.
And you can see that this texture on it because these are sand cast steel. And then you have the bull barrel, which is a slip-on bull barrel that's designed for that kit, but it doesn't really mate up to the facets on the chamber, so they just kind of stuck it on there. It kind of slid it on there and didn't bother to do anything to make it fit right. And I don't know how they have the Flashhider on there, but it's just kind of cocked sideways down a little bit.
Well, it's like it's drooped. It would not. He would be less accurate than an Imperial Stormtrooper.
Yeah, it looks like it's aiming down. Like he's always aiming down a little bit, or it's not on. Yeah,
the scope they did minimal way. They probably got it from somebody on the RPF who just kind of blued it and then just took some sandpaper to it and then they just kind of stuck it on there in a haphazard way.
They blued it all right.
And they sort of painted the crossbar, kind of sanded it a little bit to make it look old, but that's about it. That's all they did. So here's a closer up picture of what they did. And the Mauser itself is a large. I was going to say,
talk about the base Mauser.
The base Mauser is
look correct.
A pre-World War I, or is probably even pre-1900 version, a large ring hammer. So they had different variations, of course.
Yeah, so the hammer up in the upper right, the hammer that you would cock to fire, is the wrong type of hammer. So you can see that it's a large ring hammer because you can see through the hammer, whereas the correct Mausers, the hammer, I think it does have a little hole in it, but it's not nearly that large.
Much
I mean, the hammer's not
this is way exaggerated. This is the large ring. The safety's different. All these milled pockets on the side, these are for weight relief. These are all way larger than anything that came after that. There's a lot of little things that are different. The scallop here on this rail is cut much farther than these.
I mean, the angle of the grip looks different, honestly. The way the grip is mounted to the gun, it looks like a more.
It might just be the upright photo, the angle, but the grip lines. There's different amount of lines on the wood, things like that. The trigger is completely a different shape, the way it was made. Everything is just.
I mean, this is just naked eye shit, and that's what, again, not to.
Yeah.
It just.
But other than that,
it's 100% real and made of real rubies. They need to put this in a Tupperware container and bury it in the backyard for a few years to really get the worth up. Yeah.
At least the other one, they kind of got it close, sorta.
And I was sort of doing a little digging on the RPF as well. At some point or another. The gun itself, someone found in an auction.
The base
correct?
gun.
They found
went through auction.
Yeah, in fact, I have that pulled up too.
But basically the serial number, because everything does have a serial number, basically showed it was purchased. Was it on eBay or I can't even remember?
iCollector.
iCollector. Okay.
So this is the exact gun. This is it. This is from that
the base
auction.
gun. Yeah.
This is the exact one.
Which to the naked eye is an incorrect Mauser. That is not the correct Mauser. I can see that looking in as a.
Do you know what was the date on the Eye Collector auction? When did this
2011.
2011. So this is an original 2011 Star Wars A New Hope prop.
And this is the serial number. We can look at it here and it says 13099, and then I believe 13099 right there is a match.
There you go. 100% screen matched to Eye Collector. I mean, again, at least when they forge the Mona Lisa, they do just a somewhat better job. This is like, I don't know. It's like if there's a Mona Lisa and they put a cell phone tower in the back. I mean, come on, guys. We're not all idiots.
This is a quote on the auction. The prop comes with impeccable documentary provenance. The studio auction says it has been authenticated by the persons who designed it, Academy Award winner Roger Christian, and by Jason Joyner, considered by many to be the foremost expert on Star Wars props. Roger Christian said, I have seen several purported Han Solo blasters over the years, which I could not authenticate. This is the first blaster I have seen that is consistent with the features of my original and with documentation to back it up, which bears the serial number on this Mauser.
I don't get it.
Just yeah. For those of you not listening and not watching, it's just three guys shaking their head right now. It's really good radio. Just three guys shaking their heads.
Three disappointed nerds.
Yeah, just shaking our heads.
Good title for this podcast.
Yeah.
Three disappointed nerds.
Three disappointed nerds. Three little disappointed nerds are we. Dun, 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 dun. A little Gilbert and Sullivan for you. Again, the auction seems to have been pulled. I do say, unfortunately, keep your eye out for them to put some new greeblies on this and try it in a different auction or who knows where, Pawn Stars or whatnot. Yeah, I don't get it. But just gross. I don't know. Nothing else to say. Just gross. Do your research. Do your research. And by the way, hey, auction houses, do your research also.
I mean, that's
man.
the thing.
Yeah.
And like, to a certain degree, these guys auction houses are, often just trying to do business and trying to, bring in good props. And if you get something with a great story and paperwork and provenance and people like Roger Christian speaking to the authenticity of it, it makes it seem like it's great, but I just wish that there would be a little bit more digging done so that it didn't come to market in such a way. I mean, luckily with this one, it didn't actually get to the auction because I think the sort of, the educated public kind of, stepped up and
I agree.
Publicized what was wrong with it.
I agree with that point. And Scott, people like you have been, just so wonderful about sort of, knocking this down. The problem isn't the educated RPF collector. The problem is that when the press goes out on something like this, the Joe average, the guy that knows you and I, Ryan, like Star Wars, they send it to me. They go, are you going after this? They go, whatever. And when I then say, oh, no, it turns out it's a fake, they look at me like I'm the crazy one. They look at me like they don't understand. They saw it on, they saw it somewhere in a posting or whatever in the Rob Report or wherever else it got picked up. And obviously there's no one goes back and goes, oh, that was fake. And so what ends up happening is they're confused. They begin to question, I guess, in some ways, all Star Wars props and no Star Wars props. It just raises issues and it hurts the hobby across the board. I just think that's the real problem. The hobby is hurt by these fakes. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm curious how many people who would actually be in the market for something like that, would they not have the due diligence to know that, or would they just have the deep enough?
Well, we
talk about this all the time on the show.
We would, but the worry is that there are newer collectors, particularly high-end Star Wars collectors, that have come to the fore that we don't know, that we haven't spoken to. So it's very hard to speak to. They certainly don't have they're not in our circles, so they don't have regular access to the people like us that have the knowledge of the people. That's not to say that they don't have access to the knowledge, that they're not doing their research in the RPF, that they're not talking to the folks from Prop Store and
but I
from
think
Heritage.
the average human being that perhaps is not into it the way we are sees a piece in an auction and assumes by definition, doesn't read the 10 pages of tiny text at the back end of the auction, and they assume that if something has come to a reputable named auction house, that it must be okay, and that if somehow it wasn't okay, that they would stand behind it. And the truth is, it doesn't mean it's okay if it's in an auction, and it certainly means even if you purchased it and paid $3 million and then discovered that it was all wrong, no one would stand behind it. So it's sort of, you're sort of doubly screwed. And it is that funny thing. It's sort of like billionaires buying sports teams. It's like, you know, in their business life, they make really great decisions, and then all of a sudden they buy sports teams and they stop listening to people and they just do whatever they want. The same thing with props. You know, it's like you built a giant company and then you bought a Star Wars prop without looking into it. I got no answers, but I also think there's this level of expectation that if you go to Christie's and you're bidding on a Renoir, it's a Renoir. I mean, I just think I think the word auction house comes with so much. It comes with 80% of the research already built in, and usually, hopefully, that is the case. And then, you know, in these certain instances, it's just you got to be even more careful. When I bought a very famous Renoir called the Sweeney. It's Renoir's the Sweeney. It turned out the barrel on the gun. Anyway, no, I just
for a little while.
Yeah, I think people just, there is an expectation that that people want, I guess, auction houses to do better, and I guess that's I just it's disappointing. How about that for a word? Just disappointing. No judgment, just disappointed. Just disappointed.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
We expect better, especially when it's this bad. And it's that simple. It feels like 2 days of work and you could have saved yourself a lot of embarrassment.
But in a way, thank goodness it was.
But again, show me the articles of people going, oh, turns out that wasn't real. And also show me the articles where someone actually explains what the problem was and why and how these are real and these are, you know, it just, again, it's muddies the waters. It's, you know, someone took a piss in the pool and you just don't want to be in that pool. And yet we are in that pool. And that's the problem.
We're living in it, baby.
There's a good title.
Look at it.
Someone took a piss in the pool. I like that for a title. 3 disappointed nerds, parentheses, someone took a piss in the pool. What do you think? That's it for Star Wars. There's the one gun, and that was it, which is kind of amazing. Yeah, I mean, as far as we know,
there is the Greedo killer, which I guess is worth a mention. I don't know if you have any photos of that, the prop, or from still from the film. So this is when Han. The insert shot of when Han is about to kill Greedo, he reaches into his holster,
and we should point out that this would have been done either after the fact or during those Cantina reshoots, and this would have been done in California, so that gun does not leave the UK. The original Han Solo blaster does not leave the UK, and they would have needed another gun for California shots.
And the Greedo killer does not leave California. So.
And that they didn't even use a real Mauser for this. They used an MGC model gun.
There you go.
Pot metal. So here's there
you go. Oh, you do have a great photo of it.
We're seeing, you'll see this picture around, but I originally did the contrast so that you could see what was added to the MGC. So you can see the scope and the mount here, and the greebly, and of course the grease gun Flashhider was stuck on there. But what you're seeing under here, take note here of these scope mounts here. So what we're seeing here is how it was in post-production promo photos. So they used this gun for promo photos too, with Harrison Ford doing some promotional photography. And this gun has these very distinct scope rings, where one of them is attached to the mount and the other one is just kind of floating out in space up here in front. It's not attached to anything. It's really weird. Which you can see here in this series of pictures of him doing that. That's what they used it for there. But they also used it for the one pickup shot under the table, which is, That's the only time you see it. But it has a completely different setup of rings that attach the scope to the mount.
That might not even be Harrison's hand.
Yeah, probably not. I've never screen matched his veins before, so I don't know.
I think it's his hand. No, I don't know. I have that hand. We should see if my hand matches that hand. I have that.
It could be his hand.
Yeah.
Who knows?
He strikes me, I will say, I have heard this from actors on sets, Ryan. I don't know if you've ever had this. Like, I like to do my own hand inserts. I actually have had actors say that they don't like the idea that like you're doing a scene and you need to go in for like a signature or something.
Yeah.
And they do not want someone else doing it later. They want to do it right then and there.
Yeah,
so
I've had that conversation.
I'm going to go on the record and go, I bet you Harrison Ford was the kind of guy that wants to do his own hand inserts. But
you have that kind of actor, and then you have the actor that won't do the reverses with on camera. That you have the stunt over the shoulder person. It's a very interesting breed, the actor.
But a lot of those people will also only do their own hand stuff. They just don't like other actors. Right. Has this gun ever surfaced? Have we ever gotten any sort of sense of this gun, or is this gun at Lucas or anything? Do we know anything about this gun?
I don't think so. I don't know if it's at Lucas, but I've seen pictures of friends who've been to the archives, and there's just like tables of stuff.
Sure. And
there's so much more than we generally know about. It's just, I've seen pictures like, really, that's there? And it's just, it's just stuff. They have lots of it. And especially the Empire and the Return of the Jedi stuff, they have a lot of those castings and things like that and different variations and stuff. It's pretty interesting.
To my knowledge, this has never surfaced.
I don't think so
around.
Either.
Yeah.
It may have very well turned into one of the Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi blasters. They may have repurposed that MGC. Who knows?
All right, so let's jump to Empire and talk about Empire and how things change. It's funny because I guess I knew about the Greedo killer, but I never realized that it was an MGC. I always assumed that the MGC came in Empire Strikes Back. Love that shot.
I guess him goofing around doing promo stuff also. So there's two, as far as we know, there's two heroes that they made for Empire, two blank firing or live fire props. They're very, very similar. They're almost identical. Just slight differences in how the mount is shaped, and then the scope that they put on there. Like this one is an M19 or M32 with a full ring for the light port, and then the Luke has a more typical cut ring. I don't know if there's a good shot. Yeah, this one where that bottom of that port is cut.
Okay.
Otherwise, they're very similar.
Were they rigid about that? I mean, do you see them? Is that pretty like every time you see Luke with it, it's that one, or are they swapping back and forth over the course of the film?
Well, a lot of times on screen, it's hard to tell. It's just not enough detail.
You don't see enough,
to see. But there's the scene where Han shoots at Vader. He uses both because there's a behind the scenes footage of him firing one. Then someone off camera takes that, puts another one. He fires another one. It runs out. He drops it, and then all of a sudden you cut to Vader catching, and then they have Vader catching like two or three of them.
The stunts,
the stunts.
Because I tried to find a still or something of Han holding one of the stunts that flew to Vader, but it seems like he just dropped the real hero one. And then the whatever was wired over to Vader was the stunt, because you can see Vader. I have actually a great still image of Vader holding one of the stunts.
Yeah, there's a I don't know if I have that.
Not close enough to match to mine or anything like that, but
there's some footage of Vader standing there, and they just chuck him a couple. He catches it. He catches another one, drops it. Catches another one, drops it, and it's just interesting how they just get a few takes of the same thing all at once.
The hero, the firing Mauser hero, it's a very similar base Mauser to the one that's being used in A New Hope.
Yes, very similar. It's either a pre-war or wartime. None of the photos are good enough to tell 100% one way or the other, because it seems like the safety is hidden here or there. There's one picture that shows that there could be a hole in the safety, but some people think it's a reflection. So it's very difficult to tell. There's just not enough good photo evidence.
These are great photos.
These are amazing photos.
This is the best that I've been able to come up with after years and years.
A selfish question for possibly for offline research, Scott, but do you have any distinct photos of Han holding the stunt? I have a good photo of Han with the stunt in his holster, but I was looking for a photo because there's a good photo of Luke clearly holding one of the stunts, and not just a holster plug.
We should point out that so we've got these two heroes and then multiple stunts, not only for the throwing scenes, but basically for them to keep in their belt that's lighter, and probably maybe even for Luke on Dagobah to go into the water and stuff. So that is why that is why we have all of those stunts. And Ryan, this is what you have in your collection, basically. One of these.
Yes. Yeah. It's a Luke Han stunt, interchangeable. Those were used interchangeably because and you'll see when we get there, the mount is different. It's actually the mount that they based the Return of the Jedi one on. So there you go.
This is yours.
That's mine.
Yes.
That's mine from the auction photos. Mine has now been the scope mount had dislodged, so mine has been repaired since. But
there we go.
It there you go.
And you were saying, Scott, that on this stunt, because they were molded from the original, that has the serial number on it.
Serial number, that matches that Frank Sinatra close-up, which matches the Baptiste close-ups enough where you can read the serial number and all the other details.
That is fantastic. That is just gorgeous.
I mean, the casting has degraded over time. It's, or was never that sharp to begin with.
I don't think they were that great, but
I mean, you can see they're super rough, but there's enough detail. We can identify the serial number very well right here, 2813.
Yeah.
All of the other little tails.
Fantastic. And Ryan, you only picked this up a couple of years ago, right? This was
2 years ago.
Was this out of the Azarian collection? I'm trying to remember.
This was the Azarian, the John Azarian collection. Yeah. So that was that photo with the mount, the cradle stand there, Scott. That was, I guess, that was the way John had it displayed in his house. I've since made a different one.
Well, this one, yours, and this other one that you sent me pictures of that has the rod sticking out of it. Now, I think that this is just for, if it's not a repair, might have been when they cast it. Because they cast.
So this is a second different casting. This is a different stunt, not yours, Ryan.
Yes,
correct?
there are two known stunts out there. This was another one that went through public auction a long while ago. But you can see this one also has this little reflector dish in the back of the scope, and in this shot you can see that mine doesn't. It could have had it at some point and it fell out because surely that thing was glued in. But otherwise, these are the big difference between these two is it seems like you can see the Mauser barrel coming out of the Flashhider, whereas my Flashhider, it's sort of
it's definitely not the Mauser barrel. That would be much larger.
Okay.
What's interesting here is you have this is another cast of that same.
Yeah, so that's a casting of the bull-barreled the Sinatra gun, right?
So that's why,
with stuff glued onto it.
Your whole gun, I think, is basically the A New Hope hero that they cast. They just cast the upper and lower together without the Flashhider. I think they cast that separately because we have this here, which this other blaster here is also.
Yep.
And I think that they just glued on the Flashhider cast.
Yeah, okay.
And that they use that rod as kind of a guide.
And what are these other little pieces that are on this one? This is just something they were trying on this one?
These are greeblies. So this gun was used in the film.
That's in promo shots for Leia, but not on screen.
You never see it in the movie, but it's
interesting. Gotcha.
No, it's in the movie too. It's in an Imperial belt or something like that. One of the Imperial dudes uses it. I think I can't remember now. I want to say it shows up in either the control room or the detention block or something like that.
So not in a stormtrooper, in one of the Imperial.
Yeah, it's an officer thing.
Officer guy. Okay, interesting.
It exists. They just stuck the same greeblies. They use the Tomtit cylinders that are on the front of the Han Solo hero. They just cut them in half and stuck them on either side. They put a camera cord up here. It's
a camera cord. Yeah. See the
V8 kit. The Tomtit kit pieces here, and then some T-track and some conrods from the Tomtit. These three are all Tomtit pieces from the same model airplane.
Because those rods you see sometimes on the Hero Solo Blaster, right? That maybe got
on the top,
recoiled
kind of like
off.
a sight greebly thing.
Yeah.
They've
because they disappeared at some point.
It's a wild looking gun.
These castings were in A New Hope as stunts of some sort or hero props for background character.
And then they converted them into stunts in Empire.
Yeah. And so that's why I think that one with the rod sticking out is the casts were probably like this. And then they used that as a guide rod to glue on.
And that's why you're seeing that thing in the middle
That's
of
interesting.
it. Gotcha.
That's just a guess. I could be wrong, but it's definitely not the Mauser barrel.
Okay. And the just going back, if you could just go back to one of the heroes, Scott, to just talk through the parts that are on that, because there were firing heroes, right? And then they had in Hoth, because I believe Finsa had very restrictive firearms rules. So in Finsa, the thing that Han blasts the probe droid with is an MGC.
Yeah. So these hero ones, really all that's on here is a mount, a very simple mount.
And that's a custom machine deal, right?
Machine just made out of L stock. They just cut it and stuck an M19 tank scope on here, and then that's the real part. That's the tank scope, which are more easier to come by and more common, right, than the Hengsult Wessler scope from the A New Hope, or no? Sorta. Yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah. I guess so. They were more. It was in a way. Nowadays, it seems like it's all kind of dried up, but yeah, I guess they're a little bit more common.
Where are people finding them in, I guess, gun auctions, for lack of a better word? Is that sort of like if someone came to you and said, I want you to build me one like that uses as many real pieces as possible? Is that where you're is that the pond you're fishing in, so to speak?
Most of the time you find them on eBay or the RPF, because the tank scopes don't show up so much in gun auction sites, but eBay was the prime source, or the RPF. So most of the time the people from the RPF are a pool of enough people who found them at other places and will sell them.
And they circulate, obviously.
Yeah. But eBay is the other main source to just find, or Militaria websites, maybe, things like that.
And the Flashhider on these, Scott, this is also a custom machine job, right? That's not a found part.
It's not a real thing.
So they basically they made one that kind of looked a little bit like the New Hope gun, but they were making them so they could mass produce them, probably, or a little more mass produce them. Yep.
And then we have the Hoth blaster, which is the one that they used in Norway.
And that's in the Lucasfilm archives, I believe.
Yes, they still own that.
Because they don't have the live fires, because those would have gone back to the armors.
Yeah, and I think most recently, this is his most recent super public appearance when I guess, I don't know what show that was.
This is worse than, this is like Kim Kardashian wearing a Marilyn Monroe dress. Really?
Yeah.
This is what we're doing with our guns from the Lucasfilm archives? Okay,
Al
great.
Roker.
Yeah.
But here you can see where Luke even gets to use it a little bit in some promo photos or something, which is interesting because it had this big greebly on the side. Which disappeared shortly after.
That's very cool.
So because they made this for Finse, they were probably able to keep it, which is how it goes back to the archives, as opposed to the firing guns, which went back to Bapti, most likely.
Yep. And what's funny about this one is since they made this very simply, they just used Sharpie to kind of put those neural lines on. It's pretty hilarious.
That's a good shot, though. That's a really good shot.
That's a great shot, yeah. It almost looks like the stunt there. I got excited for a second, but
but now that's the MGC. That's the other one.
Yeah. Sorry, I think we sort of blew past it, but you don't have any photos of Han clearly holding the stunt promo otherwise. Yeah, I've asked around. Yeah, Luke, yes, but not Han.
Yeah, there's a picture of Luke on the little shore of the Dagobah swamp or whatever with it in his hand, and I think he's in his X-wing outfit. I can't remember. I gotta look at
It's where he's coming after he's crashed. It's where he's wading through the water, and certainly they used it because of the water.
But it makes more sense that Harrison Ford would keep a stunt in his belt, but if he actually had to hold it, he wanted the weight of the hero. Again, just what we've been told of his process. Again, Yeah,
and he liked if he was firing, he liked the recoil of the
Really great. I love that shot. All right, so that's Empire. Is there anything else we're forgetting here on Empire?
So the thinking
Not
is there were
really.
two live fire heroes, right? A Luke and a Han, and Han has fired both in his best moment when he draws on Vader, and then there were stunts, and there are two stunts in private hands, and I believe that there are a number in the archives.
There are definitely a bunch in the archives along with that Finsk gun. Yeah, there's definitely a bunch.
Some are broken, or scope mounts have broken off. Probably, there's actually a great photo of Luke after he slid through the tunnels after he falls off the gantry when he gets his hand cut off, where the scope mount is off in his holster, and certainly that's from all the sliding. So that'd be an interesting one because you could probably match that one. But for some reason, I have the number 6 in my head. I think there was some paperwork or some point at some point that said that there were 6 of those made for the film. So who knows? But there wouldn't have been that many of them. Simply just knowing how things worked around there. So it is pretty cool to have.
But what's interesting is the stunts obviously survived from being cast back when they did the first movie.
Yeah, which is wild.
Maybe they cast more. I'm not sure.
Yeah. And mine is surprisingly chunky. I mean, I would expect a stunt from that era to be kind of, flimsy and light. It's a very, very dense, solid casting for whatever that's worth. And I've held other castings from not Solo Luke pistols, but other Star Wars castings from Empire, less A New Hope, but I think from the Empire era, and they were definitely made of that same resin, I guess, so like dense resin. So it was just nice to, I don't know, feel the weight of it, because you can tell that it's period correct, whatever methodology they were using. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to ask was, because this became obvious to me in my research of it. So, and we can get to David's amazing hero in Jedi, but the mount on the stunts in Empire is the mount that they eventually built for Jedi. It sort of presaged the hero mount for Jedi.
Right.
Use mine.
Yeah.
There you go. Cool.
This is the kind of like this weird, like reverse L-shape thing.
Yeah.
But it shows up someplace else. We'll talk about that at some point here.
Oh, all right.
And then we have the Stembridge gun, which is
look at that.
So here we go. We got the same thing. Stembridge is the armorer who made these for the stuff in California. So they did.
So we should now say, because they did such a large unit in the United States for obviously the Boba Fett's, the Jabba, Boba Fett, Sarlacc pit, all of that stuff, which was shot in Yuma, and then up for the Redwoods, they needed to have basically a hero Han Solo gun for the UK unit, and then they needed a hero Han Solo gun for the American. So Bapty in the UK, the Stembridge armorer here in the US for the Redwoods in the US shoot. And Stembridge, there was a giant auction many, many years ago, which we've spoken about.
Almost 20 years ago now, right?
That's right. And this is the gun that came out of that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And this
steam into hell here.
We old. Yeah.
In the prop nerd community, we just call this the Stembridge Han Solo.
Sure.
Yeah. But they made, as far as I know, I think I saw on your little sheet, they made the Rebel Blaster, or at least one. They made the Leia, blank firing Leia one.
And now everything on this gun, other than the base Mauser, which is different, and you can tell that by the checking on the grip versus the grooves, is manufactured. I mean, even the scope is manufactured, right? Because the scope is a turning based on the MG, the tank scope.
Yeah, it's a kind of like a cobbled together to make it kind of sort of look like, that. And they did a great job. I mean, from 10 feet away, it looks the part. It looks like it close enough, on screen. So what we know. Well, there's a lot we don't know, but what we know is the scope is kind of interesting in that it's made up of a cap from something. It's just like a hairspray cap or something. You can see the little mold line and the dimple on the top, and then they have this windage knob cap. This is the same windage knob cap that goes on the Boba Fett blaster scope. Okay. So it's exactly the same size and everything. Then they have like a little brass coupling and a screw that they filed or milled slots in to make it not look like a screw. And then the back is just a Delrin, machine Delrin to make it look like the back of a scope. There's another picture from someplace from the auction here where you can kind of see the inside of it. Pretty simple. Oh, on the other side, do I have a picture of the other side?
That's sweet.
Yeah, this side. They put on two little kind of piston halves. And
those
then
piston, you see those on my blast. Those are all over Star Wars.
They machined these special for it, just out of Delrin, I think, and then they just made a little sheet metal kind of greebly here to go over the edge.
It's like an outlet cover
to mimic
scale
the one
outlet cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, I have a replica here of your gun that has the same thing. You can
see there you go. Yep.
Right there. I made it out of sheet metal and got the little cylinders and everything, cool. And basically the same thing.
And the Flashhider also custom machined, right?
Custom machined. They made a few of those. Yeah. So if we look at the MGC ones, they're all slightly different. They're all kind of the same, but they have different. Like these sections here are shorter or longer, and just the knurls are a little bit different. But generally, they're about the same shape.
Was there a firing one in the UK, Scott, or was the live fire only this?
It's not on any. It's not on screen. It's only in behind the scenes photos. It's called the Bizarro Blaster.
Yeah. I've seen that before.
It's what's funny is it looks like it's the A New Hope Hero. It has a bull barrel. It has a long extension.
It's really long. Yeah.
It has the New Hope Hero scope mounted high, but on one of the L brackets, like Return of the Jedi, and it's mounted above the gun and backwards.
Huh.
Wild.
It's the craziest thing. But
is it possible that that's it?
It is. It's got to be. You can even see even though this is blurry as hell, you can see the difference where they put on the extra. You can see the mark right here where it changes size.
Well, why would they think that would ever?
I don't know. It's just, but you see, they filmed the whole sequence with it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And it even shows up in this promo of the poster art right here.
Oh yeah. I never realized that.
Wow. So we're talking about the possibility, like, what is that gun, or what was that gun from Stembridge? Yeah, because that would have come from Bapti, and
they filmed all this stuff in the UK inside the bunker. So we have what looks to be a bull barreled with the same kind of setup.
Fascinating.
Mounts are on the same spot. We got the same A New Hope scope mount with the scope backwards and high up.
We were just saying we think it's the A New Hope blaster that's reconstituted here.
So that it had to be still trundling around. And maybe, I don't know why they have an L bracket kind of scope mount on this thing. But
Dave, check this out. Scott, show the poster image.
Oh, the poster, yeah. There it is.
It's the one in the poster.
Oh, that's so funny. Lord knows. I guess they sent him a photo.
I haven't run across better photos of this thing yet, but I'm sure they're out there.
Yeah. It's wild.
So it shows up.
Okay.
It's weird.
But the other ones are MGC ones, because there was Julian's auctions.
So these are like these are the MGCs that exist today.
Okay.
As they were on screen too.
Okay. Yeah, because the Julian's auctions had that MGC, the real one that came from the art director or whatever that worked on Jedi.
This is your gun here being used.
Right.
But this is an MGC here, an MGC.
And when was that Julian's auction? I don't even remember that one. A couple of years ago?
2018, 2017, something like that.
Is this one?
Yep, that's the one.
So they just milled this stuff straight into the MGC instead of making parts. They just stuck it on a mill and plunged an end mill in there, because each one is a little bit different. And then these Flashhiders were made out of Delrin. Then they just painted them silver.
Wild.
And they just screwed those things on there.
Yeah, Dave's is definitely much more impressive when you look at it in the cold light of day.
Yeah.
Very much more real gun looking, but just insanely cool.
But this one, they used a real scope end in the back.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Which is interesting, because The rest of them, they kind of just
they don't.
They just kind of made their own thingy. Yeah.
And it's funny because the Stormtrooper blasters, at least in Jedi, use the same type of scope.
Yep, exactly.
But I have seen most of them have the one that I used to own had a turned scope, so it was the sort of the cast version that you'd see on the solo Jedi blasters. But there is one original out there that actually has the tank scope, the full tank scope on it. And I wonder if it was they simply had trouble finding enough of them to make all the Stormtrooper blasters that they needed to make, so they just said F it and just said let's make one. This is an MGC, the one that gets taken away from by the Ewoks.
Yeah. And there's a funny scene. I don't think I have a screen capture of it, but there's a scene where Han, after the Ewoks attack and Han, flips the dude. There's two of them on the ground right next to each other, and it's on film. You can see they're both sitting there, and he just, I guess, has to pick one. It's funny, but both of two MGCs are there at the exact same time on screen.
That's cool. Never realized that
on the ground.
And the MGCs are also in the archive, I would imagine, just because they were the props.
A couple of them are in private hands now, right?
Well, there's the one through Julian's, but I think there were two that you see on screen, two that are sort of would be matched.
Did
but
the
I think
Julian's
those are
one screen match or at the time?
Never matched, photo matched or anything. It's to my knowledge, and I asked. I did a fairly deep investigation.
Were you thinking about that one at the time? Was that something you were considering? Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
David's is the one with the most body count, so I guess it's got the ultra props. It actually did something.
Or at least it did something with the Ewoks. Anyway, such is life.
I love it.
No, it is pretty wonderful, and it needs a stand, but that's a separate story. But
that's why I sent you. You had my replica for 4 years.
I had your replica. No, I'm doing it now. I'm actually in the middle of it. Yeah,
you are.
I am in the middle of it.
Good,
yeah.
Good. As should be done.
So what have we learned? Hopefully, if people listen to us, then we can hope that the next fake that shows up is much better. That's really what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to improve the level of fakes in the Star Wars prop community. And I think if you paid attention to this deep dive and you spend more than 6 minutes on your next fake, it can be a lot better. So that's Scott. Thank you for that. We really appreciate that.
Yes. On a perhaps less cynical note, this is what I always say to everybody. The wonderful thing about this collecting community, this thing that Dave and I are so passionate about, is that we know Dave and I don't have all the answers on everything. We have a little pot of knowledge on a bunch of different things around this hobby, but they're inevitably, especially the things that David and I collect, the things that go for 6 and 7 figures in this hobby, there are experts out there that have researched this stuff to the neural knobs, to every last scratch and detail, and they are accessible. They love this stuff deeply. We've had Gino Sabatino on this podcast. You can tell the level of knowledge and love that Scott has poured into this, and we're not, Scott is accessible. Like, we reached out to Scott, we found him, but he's out there on the internet. Like, if you come across something that you think is an original Han Solo blaster and you email Scott and say, hey, what do you think about this? He's probably going to write back to you because he's passionate and he cares about these things. This is why we're always saying do your research, and sometimes that involves going through what still and video research you can do on your own, and then sometimes it involves dropping a line into an expert. And if you don't know who the expert is, there are ways to find out. And if you care enough about this hobby to spend that kind of money on it, you should be able to do the extra legwork to find the appropriate expert and have them take a look at the thing, because this stuff is it's not a Renoir. The stuff is hard to authenticate. A lot of work goes into it. These things were not. When the Han Solo blaster was made, it was just a functional piece of work that was being made to get a little crappy science fiction film that nobody cared about made, done, out the door, and move on to the next thing. Us obsessing about it 50 years later is what has made it so kind of magical and special. If they knew what it was at the time, it would have gone into an archive somewhere. We would never be able to touch it. What makes these things from this era so interesting to us is the fact that no one cared about them at the time, and the magic was imbued into them because of what the film that they were used to make became and how it has existed and lived and thrived in our collective pop culture consciousness. So there's a limited amount of data available on it, but you can see the amount of knowledge that we have about these guns in particular. And also, more than half of this podcast was spent on the A New Hope blaster. That one has been poured over and analyzed to every last millimeter. And there was one of them, and that's the one. He's holding it right there. And it sadly, we'd love it if it existed, if it was, sitting in somebody's collection somewhere just waiting to come out. But all likelihood, that Mauser, the base Mauser, was destroyed in all likelihood in one of the many turnovers at Bapty and the UK trying to get firearms out of the country and all sorts of other concerns and interests along the way.
Bravo.
Do your research.
Bravo. Do your research. And boo on you, Rob Report, and anybody else that just runs with a story without actually doing a little bit of journalism. Really, really getting sick of it, especially in the prop world where it just seems like in search of clicks. And Lord knows, by the way, that the stuff dreams are made of could use a few more clicks. But I'm just kind of getting sick of the clicks on, oh, this is going to sell for $3 million. This is going to sell for $3 million, when actually it shouldn't sell for, I don't know. What do you think the pieces were worth? I don't know, a couple $100? I mean, it's a couple $100 thing masquerading as a $3 million prop. And that's just bullshit. And that
it was worth a lot more as a large ring hammer Mauser before they screwed it up.
There you go.
They drilled into it.
What's a large ring? What's a large ring Mauser go for? What does that go for?
A few $1,000s.
All right, so a few $1,000s, but not $3 million. And I think that's the larger point.
The shame is those ones are actually lower production and kind of rare. So you want to keep those intact. The wartime stuff, they made hundreds of thousands of them. So
yeah, you could have easily sold that thing on eBay to an ex-Nazi for like a couple thousand. So there you go. Good to go.
Or an aspirational one.
Aspirational. That's true. Anyway, just disappointing. And I guess I'd like to see more from, again, I'd like, and this isn't across the board. I applaud auction houses that do their research. I disappointed in ones that don't, and I am super disappointed in the press that is just looking for the headline of $1 million prop, $1 million prop, $1 million prop, and writing about just garbage. And I don't know. It's just disappointing. So we'll end there maybe with my more head shaking. Scott, where can people find you if they want to find you? You have a wonderful presence in the world. Tell us.
Yeah, on YouTube, I'm just Scott Jua. Scott, this is the first three letters of my last name, and then just Scott Jua, and then for Crucible Custom Props on Facebook. I don't know. I picked that because it's nerd from the Clone Wars series where the lightsaber droid is on the Crucible ship. That's the Jedi ship where they created lightsabers. And I was like, when I first started to get into it, I was doing lightsabers, and I said, oh, that's kind of nerdy and cool. So let's use that. Crucible Custom Props.
Excellent. And we'll have links to everything on our stuff too, to find Scott. And Scott, people can hire you to make replicas. That is your not day job, but that is your business, your side business, however one describes it.
Yeah, no, that's my it's my full time.
Oh, that's a full time. Okay.
I've been doing this since about 2012. And then for a period, I worked at Blue Realm here in Dallas, where we did screen use prop restoration, screen movie and TV props too. So
very cool.
Some small shows. But yeah, it's been one of those things where it just kind of snowballed from one small little thing into another.
Yeah, I mean, if you love a Han Solo blaster, there's no better man to phone up and have a awesome. I'll post photos of my A New Hope, my firing A New Hope.
Did you? But you
Mauser.
Never fired it, right, Ryan? You wanted it. I never. You wanted to be able to pull a trigger and stuff, but you didn't.
I wanted it to built on a real Mauser, and I wanted it to be able to, but I ultimately never took it to the range.
There's videos of yours firing on my YouTube.
Yeah. Oh, good. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I think I do remember you sent me. So mine has fired. I just didn't fire it. So we'll post that link too, so you can see it. It's excellent. It's glorious. I love it. And if you don't want a firing one, Scott actually builds. I don't know. Do you still do these? The sort of non-gun Mauser that you
discourage people from doing the live fires since Chris, blasterfactory.com made the 1-to-1 Mauser replicas. there's really no reason to do a live fire one unless you just really want to fire it, which is cool. I'm all about it because I have a few myself and I've done a number of them. But if you don't want to deal with the hassles of a firearm, which there are many, especially with California
FFL and transfer, it was a whole thing.
Or New York or something like that. Just get the steel replica. That's exactly what this is. It's
that's gorgeous replica, looking. Just gorgeous looking. Yeah.
1-to-1. It does all the things if you want to, but it's not dangerous in any way unless you use it as a club.
That, and I have a Jedi blaster that Scott built for me that was done on the the non-gun dummy, and it's just as great. So I have an example of each. Or you can get it if you have an MGC and you want the MGC version, you could send that off to Scott and he will convert it into probably an MGC and a tank scope, and he will convert it into an Empire blaster or a Jedi blaster or whatever you want for you.
Scott, if we were to take, we always like to play a game, and if we were to take the Han Solo gun off the table, what is your favorite gun, not the Han Solo gun, from the Star Wars movies? And you are welcome to pick any Star Wars movie, although we only really acknowledge the original trilogy, but you can pick anything you like.
That's tough.
We like to ask the hard questions here on Stuff Dreams Are Made Of.
The answer that first came to my head is, let me show you to you.
Oh, cool.
Ooh, I'm in suspense.
This one.
Oh, yeah. The one that Luke steals in Jabba's palace, right?
I have but I always saw it as Luke's blaster from Return of the Jedi because
it's really good looking,
because of the figure. When I was a kid, after I saw the movie, I went to TG&Y and looked through the stack of figures, and that was the blaster he came with. And so I always saw it as Luke's blaster from Return of the Jedi, and I just always looked cool. So that's, for some reason,
have any of those turned up? Has that turned up, Dave? The hero? No,
not that I know of.
There was one on that did a tour. On display with a tour,
but not on sale. Yes, not in auction. Certainly, it's not in a private collection. Yeah, in the archive, that makes sense.
No, I think one did go on auction, and it is in private hands because I have pretty good pictures from it being on auction.
God, I have zero memory of that. Wow. Okay.
Dave is intrigued.
Yeah. Well, he's looking for that. Ryan, how about you? Not Han Solo's gun.
Boba Fett, Empire Strikes Back, for sure.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I used to love.
Can I guess yours?
Well, you can in a second. I used to love, I was going to say, from the action figures, I used to love all the various the various bounty hunter guns. I always thought like they were all really cool.
They're all so
Bosk's
cool.
gun, everybody's, all of those, like the shot of the bounty hunters on the deck of, and then those action figures were like my absolute favorites. I think that Empire was, I did buy Jedi action figures, but Empire was my final heyday of like collect them all, if that makes any sense. And the little bit, the grouping of the bounty hunters was just badass. Yes, go ahead, guess mine.
Which one did you say?
I was just saying like Bosk and Dengar, just those figures. And I said
Boba Fett Empire was my pick.
Man, it's so hard.
Yeah.
Were you able to find the photo? Because I want to.
But I think they're under NDA, so I'll show you.
Okay, no worries. We'll look off.
Okay.
But because we're gonna do, here's the hard end of the show. Ready? I'm gonna say the gun I like the most. But first, I want to say, please like us and follow us on social media at Props Podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Stuff Dreams Are Made Of. Please email us at
dreamsaremadeofpodcast@gmail.com.
And the gun that my favorite gun, other than the Han Solo gun, is of course the Chewbacca bowcaster. Bye bye.